Way before COVID. 80 hours a week. Way before COVID.
Please come to order. Good evening. Welcome to our joint meeting with the St. Mary's County delegation. Please turn your cell phones off or on vibrate. I am Randy Guy, President and Commissioner of St. Mary's County. I'd like to introduce the delegation and commissioners. Sitting to my right is Delegation Chair Todd Morgan, Senator Jack Bailey, and Delegate Matt Morgan.
Good
Delegate
evening.
Brian Crosby is unable to be here tonight. Sitting to my left is Commissioner Eric Colvin,
Good
Commissioner
evening.
Mike Hewitt,
Good evening.
Commissioner Mike Alderson
Evening.
Jr., and Commissioner Scott Ostro.
Good evening.
Sitting at the table to the left is David Weisskopf, our County Administrator.
Evening.
Also like to introduce county staff assisting. Sitting at the end of the dais to my right is Tracy Rohan, our recorder for tonight. Okay. Sitting at the table to my right is Jenna Guzman, our communications director.
Good evening.
Our video media producer team is behind the glass. At this time, I'd like everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. I'm going to get my chair up here. I would like to welcome our citizens in the audience and at home to tonight's joint meeting with the delegation. I'd like to thank Senator Bailey, Delegate Todd Morgan, and Delegate Matt Morgan for meeting with us this evening to continue our partnership for the important work we are doing on behalf of the citizens of St. Mary's County. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide the commissioners, the delegation, and the public an opportunity to hear presentation and provide comments on the 2025 legislation proposals. We are looking forward to a productive meeting. Delegate Chairman Morgan, would you like to make opening remarks on behalf of the delegation?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to sit here at this table again. Been here a couple times before. I want to thank my colleagues for being here and the commissioners also for this evening. We have a lot of things to go over, a lot of friendly faces in the audience I see. So without further ado, Mr. President, away we go.
Senator Bailey, you got any opening remarks you'd like to?
It's a pleasure being here with you all this evening.
Matt, anything?
Thank you all. Look forward to hearing proposals and, the discussion.
Okay, thank you all very much. Let's move directly to our meeting tonight. Mr. John Hauser, Deputy County Attorney, will now present our 2025 legislative proposals. It's all yours, John.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Senator, delegates. It's my pleasure to be in front of you this time of year to propose the requests that the Commissioners of St. Mary's County received this year from various staff, agencies, outside government agencies, and members of the public for ideas they have for legislative initiatives that they would like the Commissioners to request or support this coming year. We, as you know, this tonight isn't the first night in the process where we do this. We closed our submission deadline this year on August 21st, came in front of the commissioners with the proposals, 15 of them this year on September 17th. A week later, we had a final vote, and now a week after that, coming in front of you all with what we hope are close to the final set of requests the commissioners will make this coming year. One lesson learned this year is we are never again, as long as I'm here, doing this back to back to back in terms of weeks, because it doesn't leave us too much time to refine these or to flesh them out. You'll see that there are a total of 4 bills that the commissioners deferred on out of these proposals until later on in the fall to get some more information out. But the plan is to go through all 15 of them right now, say what they are, tell you what action the commissioners took on them, and to take questions in turn on each one as we move through it. First one up is the Public Facilities Bond that was requested by the Department of Finance. As the delegation will remember that county government tries to request this bond bill every 2 years now instead of every year. So what we do is 2 years is coming up, and the Department of Finance came out with the number that they think we are going to have to ask for further public bond money to fund the CIP projects that are in the budget. The proposal that we got this year would take us through for the next 2 years, through fiscal year 2026 and 2027. Number that Department of Finance gave us to fund all the CIP projects that are in the works, that are planned and programmed for those 2 fiscal years, was $94 million. What the commissioners have done for now is this will be the first of the 4 bills that I just mentioned that have been deferred. Rather than take a final action and request that bond initiative, or that public facilities bond, and that money now, the commissioners chose to defer this until later on in the fall to see if that number can be adjusted. The idea is that the very first budget work session for the coming fiscal year that's going to touch on the CIP is going to be held on November 19th. So the idea is to hopefully have a better idea in hand then if that $94 million is righteous or if that has to be moved one way or the other. So we're not in a position where we're going to request it right now. That's the way things are looking at this moment. But it has, at the moment, been deferred to flesh this out a little bit more at that first budget work session. And we'll be looking forward to communicating with the delegation later then, once we've had that first meeting right before Thanksgiving. So, any questions? We can take them one by one, move on.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
well, thank you for taking the time, and I think that's the right decision to go ahead and flush it out a little bit more. I watched your legislative meeting a week ago and saw some of the dialect going back and forth. And, yeah, 94 million, it is a big number, so I would really like to see it come down. And I want to thank Mr. Weiskopf for providing some information, because I thought I was crazy there for a minute when I saw the $94 million bonding authority request. Because we used to figure debt that was total county debt with MedCom and the county money. We changed it a few years ago. So I went back and looked. In 2018, the total debt for just the county was $72 million. And I'm looking at how this spans out over this term. By FY 2027, the total county debt balloons to $260 million. I mean, it almost quadruples in about 8 years. And to me, that does sound like a lot. So if it could get brought down or really take a look at some of these projects, I think it would be helpful.
Well, the good news is our taxable base has increased by over $2 billion during that same time frame. And our revenues have increased over $100 million. We really appreciated a little over $50 million with the 2018 federal tax cut, which limited state and local taxes at $10,000. That tax cut targeted higher paying individuals, higher income individuals and families, and that brought us in quite a windfall. So while you're right about, now the other thing I'd like to point out is the real estate market. What's happened there with the low interest rates that we had for so long, that drove up property values, which increased our property taxes. Now, there's different opinions on the Board of County Commissioners, but I would say if you can't return it in tax refunds or reductions, then you have to return it in amenities. And I like to think we've been able to do the detention center, the police districts 4 in Lexington Park, 1 in Charlotte Hall, 3 in the Wildwood area. We've been able to do school projects, going to be the Chapticon renovation. The renovations of the schools have really kicked in a big number to us on the bonding. We've also been able to appreciate almost $30 million that we've been able to put towards the Board of Education over maintenance of effort during that time. We've raised our salaries for our teachers. We've raised our salaries for our deputies. We've raised our salaries for our county employees. We've set up our EMS department. All those things have been very expensive. And when you do that, when you have new people, you have additional things to do. We have a new Leonardtown Library that we're proud of, a new Garvey Center we're proud of. FDR Boulevard is finally getting done. Sections 1C, 1C2, 3A, 3B was just done. We have the new Air Museum at Lexington Park. We have a new animal shelter we bought with no debt. 3 Notch Trail is getting done. We have the barns at Newmarket. So I think you make a good point, Delegate. But I think on the other hand, our debt is being well managed because we keep below our 2% in our 10% numbers we put out.
Those are all very valuable products. But again, the elephant in the room was the debt service payment. And I believe it was your own words. You talked about making that debt service payment and the justification for increasing the excise tax that was supposed to be revenue neutral.
It was
And then
revenue-
no, it wasn't. It was a $4 million takeaway out of the private sector. And then last spring, we raised income taxes in the county up to the legal limit. So, yeah, we've had a lot of these projects, but the debt service payment is increasing on there. So look, I don't want to have a big tax discussion tonight and stuff on this bill, especially when it's not thought out and you don't have it like what you're actually asking for. But I would caution that. That is a big concern among citizens, and the debt is skyrocketing.
Well, we could use some help with what we call the wealth factor and the other factors coming down from Annapolis that we can't control, and with some of the reasoning behind raising the income tax.
Well, you just mentioned you got an extra $5 million, I believe, from the Trump tax cuts that ran in 2000.
50. I'm
How much,
talking about
50?
what's coming out of Annapolis now.
Well, I
with
think
the-
it's fair to sit there and say there's three of us. Excuse me, there's two of us at 39. There's 102 on the other side. So as many as you guys can squawk, because I sat there before too, you can blame Annapolis, but I know Matt and our votes is very consistent. And we're generally are almost always in the minority when it comes to these fees and taxes. So we understand the argument about blaming Annapolis. That's easy on your side. We know how we vote, which is generally inconsistent with you guys, and we still get blamed. That's okay.
I think part of the struggle is we're seeing increasingly the state not being able to come through with the commitments it's made to the county in education especially. We had Piney Point Elementary School where there was planned money from the state and they didn't give the second year money for it. I believe they changed their estimates for Chopticon High School.
Yes, they reduced it by $20 million. Reduced it by 20 million.
It's making it an increased struggle for the county to be able to manage this.
Because we have to manage our schools and we have to do the renovations.
We're being penalized for taking care of the infrastructure, as you well know, Todd.
I'm just saying, it's easy to blame Annapolis, but we're not on the side of raising taxes and fees across the board. I think I've sat there and listened. I'm sitting here speaking tonight. I mean, I've sat here longer than everybody, so I got it.
But we have unfunded mandates that have been passed down to us from Annapolis.
And we get that.
How you say
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And we got to live with them.
Yep. No,
We had to
and
give
you know,
teachers
one of the largest
they
one
want.
was the Blueprint
I know, the
Curling
Blueprint
Commission.
is still going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do?
We consistently voted no against that and spoke out against that. And
Nothing
guess
we
what?
did.
The governor came out and said, "Do you know what? I think we're going to have to make some
Amendments.
changes and
Said
amendments
that
to that."
last month.
Yeah, I know. And it was very good to hear that. Now, I could also need some help in saying that, push back. Just don't complain to us.
But
Go
unfortunately,
ahead and
we
talk
in-
to them.
we in
When
the
you got to make
county-
code, go ahead and make your voices known
unfunded
and your
mandates,
opinion
and
known.
we got to live with them.
As I said before, I told all of you guys, we expected to have a change in Kerwin. You guys went ahead and raised all the salaries.
Yeah.
We said you have a whole nother year to wait on this one, let the legislation take place. Y'all went ahead and did it. So, I mean, Matt and I were very vocal about that, and we can make suggestions, and you can listen or don't listen. That's it is, that simple.
Well, I think your point is majority rules.
Thank you, and we know where we are in the majority.
Well, but let me just ask that. The majority does rule, but also at some point you have logic and reason, and the minority opinion does seem to rise up quite often up in Annapolis. You're seeing it play out with Kerwin. You're seeing it play out with some of this juvenile crime just yesterday. You're going to see it play out with immigration detainers. That's coming. So look, when you speak up and talk about the things that are not working, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I would say that I would encourage, if Annapolis is not behaving correctly or something you feel is unjust, talk about it as much as possible.
I'm just saying we could use more help.
That's it. I'm telling you, this is what it is. This is what it is.
That you could use more help. It's Annapolis's help. That's the reason why the bond request is $94 million.
The bond
It's
request.
not. That's Annapolis's fault.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And that's
Gotcha.
why we
Okay,
were
okay,
delayed
we
on it.
belabored the point. Excuse me, Mr. Hauser.
Barring any further discussion on Proposal 1, then if we are ready to move on to the second proposal of the 15 we've got tonight. Second proposal is a more traditional request for a change in legislation, actual statute with suggested language in front of you. And it is the first in a trio of requests that the general theme is going to be requesting for more flexibility, more freedom from Annapolis, from state laws that prescribe a certain way things have got to be in St. Mary's County or elsewhere in the state. Second request is about the animal control statute. We have a local animal control ordinance. That animal control ordinance, by and large, can be crafted how our local commissioners want it to be, but not entirely. Specific part of the animal control statute this proposal looks at is its prescriptive requirements for what dog licensing has to look like in St. Mary's County. In our animal control ordinance, we require every dog over the age of 6 months to be licensed. That license can only last for a year. That license has to be applied for by June 30th. That license has to be printed on a metal tag. That metal tag has to be less than 1 inch in length. That metal tag has to have a secure fastener attached to it, and that metal tag must then be attached by way of the aforementioned secure metal fastener to a collar that a dog's owner must then keep on the dog all times that dog is not kenneled or hunting under the charge of an attendant. The reason why our animal control ordinance has to spell all of that out with such specificity is because all of that is spelled out verbatim with such specificity in the state statute, saying that the Commissioners of St. Mary's County shall pass an animal control ordinance that shall have these requirements in it. And all we are asking for is to get rid of that language and give us general enacting legislation or authority to implement an animal ordinance that has general licensing provisions in it. Nothing more specific than that, so that we can choose at the local level what works best, kinda for our county, our residents, and their dogs. Now, every county in this section of the local government article has a statute that prescribes or says what their local animal regulations will be. Most of those counties have, to one degree or another, a prescriptive set of requirements like what we have, but not all of them. About 4 counties, to one degree or another, have a general grant of authority like we're asking for in this legislation. And the legislation that's in front of you is almost verbatim a word-for-word copy of the authorizing statute for Carroll County. So of those 4 counties that have a little bit more freedom than the rest, we are just asking to be county number 5 in this respect. And again, it wouldn't be to pass the legislation, pass the requirements at the state level and tell us what it would be. All we are asking for is that general grant of authority to say you, St. Mary's County, in your own good time, in your own good way, can pass an ordinance in the future and not have to keep coming back to Annapolis every time we want to change the width and the color of our dog tags. So, the request comes from the Department of Emergency Services. Jen Utz, the director of that department, by way of Joy Wilson, the supervisor of the Animal Control Division within it. Any questions about this proposal, I'm happy to field them. I can probably speak to them.
I just had a real quick question. What's that going to do to the fee that somebody pays for their dog?
Right
that
now,
they
the
have?
fee is 0.
Well, right here in the language, it talks about the fee being $1 in the language that's stricken, but in the new language, it says county commissioners of St. Mary's shall set the fees, terms, and forms. So what's the fee? Are we talking about a dog tax?
So there wouldn't be a fee, I can tell you. When this was coming up, the idea was not to use it to generate revenue. That was not the goal or the idea at all. The reason we are asking for it, I think why Animal Control brought it, is as you might know, we passed a new animal control ordinance, and the licensing requirements came under some scrutiny. And the explanation we had to give of why Fido has to be licensed by the county is because the state says so, and the state is very specific about what has to happen. So I don't think the fee is much at issue or much of a concern, and it's not something the department is expecting to raise money on. So that's not there. It really is just about giving us more
So that's
freedom.
but that's the whole impetus behind my question. Is the fee going to be raised? Is the legislation giving you the opportunity to raise the fee?
So, Mr. Hauser, my understanding is right now we have the ability to raise a fee, and right now we set the fee at 0. Am I correct on that?
So you are correct. Right now, we are by choice, I
We
think.
have no fee right now. We have the ability to raise a fee, but we choose not to.
Right now.
So the legislation would not change that at all.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
I said, my sense is that
X.
Well, you're letting the cats off.
Yeah, exactly.
I said,
That's
I,
room free.
I think the real goal here is, again, not a backdoor way to get money. It's to get out of this very prescriptive set way of doing things. Like, there's no reason in the world, I would think, and this is one specific thing that came up, that a dog license should have to lapse after just 1 year. You should have to have the application in by June 30th. If you've got a rabies vaccination that's good for the next 3 years, why not let the license run out all the length of that time? That's something that some counties, some cities across Maryland do allow right now. It's something we can't because of the way this particular statute is written in its current form.
Good. Nice job explaining, Mr. Hauser.
All right, the next proposal, number 3 on the list, and again, in the theme of trying to take a look at laws that prescribe a certain way of being in St. Mary's County that may not necessarily have to be that way and could allow for some streamlined government functioning if done away with. Third proposal requests repeal of a 1991 law that prescribed a very set, very unique to St. Mary's County way of amending our comprehensive water and sewer plans. Every county has to have a comprehensive water and sewer plans. They are comprehensively amended from time to time. Some counties on a 10-year, some counties on a triennial. It depends. But all counties have a way to make minor amendments from time to time in between those major updates. And we say minor amendments, those are the type of category changes where comprehensive water and sewer plan says this is where we have public water and sewer, this is where we're planning to have public water and sewer, this is how long in those areas we're planning to have public water and sewer we think it'll take to get there. And within those categories of plans, or those areas of plan service, you can have categories that you'll have water and sewer within 3 years, within 6 years, within whatever the amount might be. Anytime you have to even make just a simple category change in St. Mary's County, saying that we will have, for example, developer finance public water in 6 years compared to 3 years, we have to pass through this unique amendment process that is just applicable to St. Mary's County. Other counties have a state minimum. They have to have at least one public hearing in front of the local governing body to pass an amendment. The local governing body has to also give the opportunity for the local planning agency to review that amendment, even the simple ones. And there's no getting out of that. We're not asking to get out of that. But in St. Mary's County, there is a second public hearing that's required before the Planning Commission itself. Our public agencies that in other jurisdictions only has to pass a review and make a determination that the requested amendment aligns with our comprehensive plan or does not. That second public hearing puts an onus on the applicant to advertise that public hearing, to go through that process, to pay those costs. And that's a cost in both actual monetary terms, usually about $1,000, I think, typically. Not the biggest expense in the world, but the more pressing cost is in time, because just by virtue of requiring that second public hearing and the procedures that have to be gone through for it, you're typically looking at anywhere between a month and a half to 2 months at least of time that's being added to the development cycle. Planning Commission members have talked about the need for this process from time to time for the last few years. It was a topic conversation before I came on. This year, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation, 7-0, to request repeal of this particular requirement in the hopes that, again, get rid of the state law that says we have to be a certain way, that when the time comes to amend our comprehensive water plan and we set forth the procedure for amendments in the future, we have the freedom to go with something a little more streamlined, a little more costly, a little less costly rather, and a little quicker to get through for an applicant than what we have right now.
How much time do you think this would cut off?
About a month and a half to 2 months on average. Some take longer than that, but I think that's the minimum you'd be looking at.
Doing CWSP 6-3, you're taking a month and a half off the process.
That's what we think, at least. Some, for one reason or another, will drag on longer than that, but that, I think, is the minimum. Now, we don't see a plethora of projects that come through this. I counted up, there were about 15 in the past 5 years that had to go through it, but for those 15 projects at least, and some of them, not all of them, In fact, I think most of them not large developments, small ones, even one single-family home that came through, but you're taking some time off the process for those applicants.
I'm sure that helps everybody.
Right. The other thing we noticed is that it just wasn't a procedural safeguard that the public seemed to be taking that much benefit in. Of those 15 hearings or so we've had in the last 5 years, we've had maybe 8 public comments total, folks who came out when I went back and watched the tapes.
Yeah.
And most of the comments being given were not terribly germane to the comprehensive water and sewer plan itself. It was about other aspects of the project.
Okay, thank you.
And Delegate Morgan, we hear from people trying to do these projects that time is money. So when they have something that they borrowed money for or have some kind of a loan going on and deadline to meet, it just adds time to it and costs money.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next proposal, and the last of the kind of bills that are seeking further flexibility from a state statute, is a request from staff to increase the procurement threshold for the threshold we hit where we must have a quote-unquote competitive bidding process for the procurement of goods and services from $15,000 to $50,000. The genesis of this requirement is in a section of the local government article that is applicable to commissioner counties only. So only St. Mary's County, Calvert gets around this by public local law anyways. Somerset, Carroll, Washington, Garrett County are the whole constellation of counties that still have to abide by this law. It's an old law, too. I'm so old that I can't tell you when it was first laid down in the books. The amendment notes don't exist. The First Amendment note in there in the annotated code that says somebody changed this law at some point was in 2013 when they just wholesale copied the old Article 24 into the new local government article, so there's no telling how long it had been in the 1957 code prior to that point. But I think the idea of staff who requested this or thought it would be a good idea is that $15,000 whenever this came down in 1982, 1972, 1952, whenever it was, doesn't go quite as far today as it did way back when, and that the request to $50,000, not terribly scientific, there's no reason behind it, it's just a number that thought well, but would give a little bit more freedom and a little bit more breathing space to make procurement an efficient process. Now, again, as with previous bills, we're not requesting a change in the law of kind of mandate or a forced 50,000 is the limit and there it has to be. All we are asking for is a change in the law that would allow us to take that limit up to 50,000 in a future iteration of the procurement manual, if the commissioners would choose to flex their newfound freedom in that manner,
And
if
I
a bill
believe we
like
did
this
this
would
for Calvert
pass.
last year.
I know other counties have made changes through this for their local ordinance or something like that, where they've kind of bypassed Annapolis. I mean, that was a nice presentation, because that was going to be my first question is, when was this $15,000 actually written? I don't see a problem with this, and honestly, you'd probably have a bunch of other counties pile in. You know, the other 5 commissioner counties would probably like to jump on this bill.
Right. That was the thought. So the legislation that was drafted, St. Mary's County and St. Mary's County only, and there are a couple ways we could go about that, a public local law, or so we did it a change to the statute. I think if there's the interest from the delegation and the interest from the commissioners, we could reach out to the commissioner counties in the interim, see who else would want to join in on the bandwagon.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, then the next proposal from the Department of Economic Development would be a change to the alcoholic beverages article, our local alcohol laws, first of 3 proposals from county government and the community that touch upon our local alcohol laws in some way. DED's proposal would be to create a multiple licensing plan in St. Mary's County along the lines of what has been done in at least some other counties that would allow a restaurateur to have more than one Class B beer, wine, and liquor restaurant license. And very clear that that's the only type of license they're contemplating or requesting, that you could have more than one. There are some allowances for that already baked into state law, so they certainly contemplate that possibility. We would need the law to bless it at the local level or to go forward with it. But DED's idea is that by keeping the barrier at one and one only for your license, that you are discouraging entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, folks who might be willing to start up another business or another location elsewhere from doing that because they're stuck with their one existing beer, wine, and liquor license at their one existing restaurant in its one existing location. And the thought is that this might give those owners some freedom they would appreciate and could spur on economic development and opening up new establishments here in the county.
It further helps our small businesses, if I remember correctly.
Right. That's DED's idea, I think, in proposing it. Now, the commissioners did get it. I think, speak for the commissioners, say there was some initial interest, but it's an alcohol law. It has about the most Byzantine set of laws and regulations and rules I know of. And the thought was that this would be another bill to defer until we get additional input from the Alcohol Beverage Board. Put this in front of them because it has not been before the Alcohol Beverage Board yet. Just the commissioners, see what they think about it, chew them over, or let them chew it over, and then bring back their input and any suggested refinements or ideas to improve it back in front of the commissioners and send a final bill to the delegation with the request at that point. So this one might be close, might be not to a finished product, but for now is still being deferred, and I and some combination of Chris Casalemas and Kelly Hinkle from DED am going in front of the ABB on October 10th to talk about this proposal and solicit their feedback. So if no questions, the next proposal after that is from Commissioner Scott Ostro, the prohibition of roadside solicitation and donations in St. Mary's County. Expect this might be a familiar piece of legislation to the delegation. I know it'll be very familiar to at least the delegation chair, because I remember the delegation chair texting me from the committee meeting last session saying, does St. Mary's County want in on this bill? And the response was, not at this time. But
It's back.
But a few months later, chewed it over, thought about it, and the commissioners did choose to come forward with the request to add St. Mary's County to the list of counties, the current list being Calvert, Carroll, Charles, Harford, and Washington counties where a person is prohibited from standing in a roadway, a median divider, or an intersection of a public roadway for the purpose of soliciting donations from an occupant of a passing vehicle. And the request is simply to add St. Mary's County to that list of counties.
I want to make sure, you're 100% correct there, Mr. Hauser. We were texting back and forth. And I know there have been some considerations in the past relative to freedom of speech. And the Attorney General, Mr. Brown, came back with a conclusive statement, said this is not against freedom of speech, and he supported that bill last year when it went through committee and furthermore to the floor. So for all the people out there that we're restricting freedom of speech by doing this, the Attorney General said it's not the case. So that is the venue I believe that this is resting on. It did pass for Calvert County last year. I know there are some concerns as to, what it entails, and basically it says that all solicitation on the roads will be prohibited. Now, obviously, in the 8th District in particular, there's a lot of folks up there at 235 and Route 4. If it were to pass, I have absolutely no idea how the sheriff would enforce it. I have no idea how the state's attorney would prosecute. If it's something you want, I think it'll be up to us to discuss it internally. But like I said, I do know what happened last year in Calvert County, and it was a lot of discussion, but it went through.
So I'll just chime in real quick. One of the impetuses behind this, obviously this is about safety. And we have the data from the state to show that where this is predominantly happening in our county is the most dangerous stretch of roadway in our county.
There's no doubt about it.
So that's the motivation behind it, I would think.
Absolutely.
We do. I'll note for the public's edification that Delegate Morgan, you are correct. The Attorney General's office did come forward with that letter opining on the constitutionality of this statute and finding their strong opinion that they do believe it is constitutional. We do have a copy of that letter. That letter is part of the materials accompanying this proposed letter accessible on board docs. If any member of the public does want to go on and read that opinion for themselves, or that letter for themselves.
Thank you.
Proposal number 7 from Commissioner Colvin. I believe the delegation members are familiar with the nature of the problem that this looks at as well. But by way of background, there is motor fuel bought for a school bus that a contractor uses in service of the County Board of Education. The motor fuel tax associated with that purchase is exempt under current state law. Not that it's meant to be, but that there is in fact a statute that says motor fuel that is exempt from the motor fuel tax. Issue, I think, out in the real world, as I understand it, is that certain contractors, when they buy that fuel from private vendors, from private contractors, from a retail station, wherever they're getting it, that they're not able to get that exempt fuel tax taken off the top. So they're in this system right now where they are expected to send for reimbursement of those expenditures to the comptroller's office to provide proof of the purchase, to provide proof of what should be exempt from it, and then to receive that exemption or that money back from the comptroller's office. And the issue is that for one reason or another, comptroller's office is taking a prolonged time to process these requests for reimbursement. It seems like there are many reasons that might be the case. I think not least of them, the comptroller's office is in the midst of some technology and process upgrades that they are working on, and that this might just be part of the birthing pains of coming into 2024. Part of it, too, might be issues on the contractors, not always getting all the right information or being able to fill out the forms exactly as the comptroller's office wants them, and getting those rejected on those grounds. Not entirely sure, and I'm sure there are other reasons as well. But the idea that Commissioner Colvin had was, is there a possible fix legislatively to at least help the process out? And approach that's in front of you is probably not the best approach that's out there. I'll confess, I don't think it's the most elegant thing I've ever thought up. But what it does up is it just takes the motor fuel tax exemption and says that once the comptroller's office gets a receipt, properly filled out receipt on the right form, supporting documentation in order, that they have 37 days to get that refund check out the door. 37 days is not a particularly magic number. That is taken off of legislation 2 years ago that General Assembly passed that related to prompt repayment or issuance of grant money to nonprofits once they submitted a proper invoice. Again, not sure that is I'm sure there are other solutions out there, but that's kind of what we're able to come up with on the fly. Now, this is another one where I think there are a lot of moving parts with it and maybe more information to be gleaned. So this is another one the commissioners chose to defer at this moment, pending the receipt of additional information and to give it more time to flesh out. But I think the idea is to figure out, is there anything that can be done? What is the best way to go about doing it?
You want me to answer that? Well, I mean, I got some more information. I appreciate the intent for that legislation. And I think it would be wise for us right now maybe to keep that in our hip pocket and use that maybe at a later time. We'd like to try to go ahead and fix this inside the comptroller's office. I attended a meeting last week with the bus contractors, with Commissioner Hewitt and Commissioner Colvin, and it was a very good, informative meeting. Where they updated us on their struggles. I reached out to the comptroller's office after that meeting. Today, I got an email with at least some contacts that we can talk to inside the comptroller's office, the director of revenues division, as well as the motor fuel refund supervisor. So at least we have some contacts now of actually who to approach this. I'm under the opinion that the school system is in support of this, and they'd like to go along with it. So to me, there should be some flexibility and maybe some common sense involved in this, because I would think currently, after dealing with this meeting and thinking about this, that the metropolitan counties that don't have independent contractors like we do, where their school systems are completely, and the buses are completely fueled by the counties, their school systems or their counties already getting some type of refund to their school system for the motor fuel tax. So what I would suggest is some type of pilot program for St. Mary's County to duplicate that portion of it and let the school system break out the money for each independent contractor.
It's fair.
So we're being told that the Board of Ed is not open to that right now, but we'll have some conversations with them. But I
Well,
will.
it won't work without the Board of Ed.
That's right. But I will add on what was eye-opening in the meeting with the contractors last week was not just the length of time that it's taking some of them to get their repayments, but the fact that they get the repayments as a check in the mail with no explanation. It does not match what they submitted, and they don't understand why. They're not given reasoning why. And so that's difficult. When
Yes,
you're running
that
a
was very
that's
concerning.
difficult.
And it was also interesting hearing their perspective of how the system could be gamed as well. And after going through that meeting, I'm convinced that it would be way easier for all parties involved and way more secure because the school system knows exactly how many miles that bus is traveling, and that's what they're paying for. If the school system just included that with their regular reimbursement as a separate
Don't disagree.
fund or something
Yeah,
like
I would
that.
agree with you too. And I think one of the issues we heard that night that there was double dipping. And what we've heard from the superintendent is that the double dipping led to the system they have now. And I think the remedy for that would be to say if you double dip, you lose your contract. Because it has to be some kind of penalty if people are double dipping, because nobody wants that.
Well, there was some double dipping, I think, in the past. I mean, we had some people admit to that. I guess the concern now is they can't double dip, but could be fudging. And to me, the fudging can't take place if the school system's doing the payment, because the school system is paying, they know exactly how far those buses are traveling.
I think
So-
we agree with you.
Yeah,
I think we're-
absolutely. I think we're on the same page. But let me approach the comptroller's office and just see what their appetite is for some type of pilot agreement, workaround. Because like I said, they have to already be doing this with the larger metropolitan areas.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like the Board of Education would have the staff and the expertise to be able to, if it takes 8 months to get your money back, they got the wherewithal to wait that long. These contractors don't have the wherewithal, the financial backing to wait that long.
Well, and that's absolutely true. But, going through that meeting, what I think the problem is with the comptroller's office is just the sheer amount of paperwork that we have 42 bus contractors, and they're sending files, like reams of paper, to the comptroller's office that has to be manually processed. And to me, that's almost archaic and kind of crazy. And I can see why it would be so labor intensive versus just having the school system submit that. The school system could even submit it ahead of time because they know, like when school starts, exactly how much those buses are traveling. So I just think that would be a way easier, streamlined system. We just need to get some attention of people, with higher pay grades than ours to, see our
I think
point
we
of
need
view.
Board of Ed people. That's what we need.
And the Board of Ed as well.
So I think we also have, I've dealt with comptroller on this issue here recently. We've had a couple hour discussions, and she's pulled in, her motor fuel tax people that are going out and put them on our issue so that our people can get their refunds, right? They introduced a brand-new system to try to handle this at the comptroller's office, and clearly, electronically, it's not working, right? So I appreciate the fact that you are delaying this, so it gives everybody a chance to sort of massage this till we see whether or not we need some legislation. But the main impetus from talking to the comptroller is that they are doing everything in their power to get our contractors up to date as soon as possible. That's really what our goal is, right? To get everybody paid as quick as possible, and then we look forward to see, how to do this in the future.
Sounds good.
All right. Then no further discussion. We are halfway through the list now. Proposal number 8, a request for a legislative bond initiative that was requested by John Slaughter, the director of the UAS Research and Operations Center at the University of Maryland. And long and short of the request, my summary is that it would be an LBI for EV charging infrastructure at the St. Mary's County Regional Airport. EV charging infrastructure particular to charging electronic VTOL or eVTOL equipment. Now, I had the subjects at school I was good at. I had a couple, but math, science, and engineering were not on that list, not even remotely so. So rather than try to get into the weeds on this one and explain what the infrastructure is for, what these eVTOLs are, how they function, I'm going to ask Mr. Slaughter to come up. He's here. And I told him no more than 3 minutes, just to present the LBI request and field any questions on the technical aspects of it. And get me out of the fire on this one.
All right, John. Well, thank you.
Thank you for
And-
being here.
Gentlemen, yep. What we're talking about here is really something that's being referred to now as the third aviation revolution. The first, the Wright brothers, the second jets, and this is really part of what's coming next in aviation. We're at the front end of it. It's all the way from drones to what we're talking about here, which are essentially small, electrically powered aircraft. All of these things are highly automated. They're crewed aircraft. They'll have pilots. They'll have up to 4 passengers, equivalent amounts of cargo, and they're not far away. You know, a lot of people don't know about them. You may not have heard of them. But in the 2025-26 timeframe, the first 3 of these companies, Joby Aviation, Archer Aviation, and Beta Technologies, are going to get certification of these from the FAA. When that happens, very shortly thereafter, they're going to start spreading out, carrying passengers, and in order to make that work, there's some infrastructure required. So thus the chargers. So the state actually is starting to look at this, and the governor's office is looking at this whole advanced aviation question, drone deliveries, all the way through these kinds of eVTOLs. These companies are starting to stake out, places to do these operations. So, for instance, Beta Technologies has already built 34 of these things on the eastern states. They got another 16 coming this year, and the proposal here is to make St. Mary's, put St. Mary's on that list, get it out towards the front, perhaps the first in the state. And what can these things do for you? Well, I was a long time in the Navy here. I traveled up to the airports in the D.C. metro area, just for one example. I did it a lot. And each and every one of those times, I was in a car for 3.5 hours, got to park up there after making my way through the traffic, and then pay for that parking, and then repeat and rinse and repeat on the way back. So now we're talking an aircraft that can do 200 miles an hour, 150, 250-mile ranges. We're talking 20 to 30 minutes. Patients going up for treatments in the hospitals up in D.C. Metro, up in Baltimore, rather than that painful ride in that car through all that traffic, a short ride up there directly to those kinds of facilities. And other uses are going to come too. Down here in St. Mary's, again, we've been around aviation a long time. This is known as an aviation center, an innovative area for aviation. Seems like a pretty natural fit. So how would this happen? So the bond initiative would be to fund the installation of charging infrastructure at the airport. There's a company I'd mentioned before, Beta Technologies, along with the aircraft. They're building chargers. It is a common technology, so it's not just specific to their aircraft. So it could be used for others. One of these 3 companies is making something that's just theirs. If you think about VHS and Beta, it's kind of like that over again. So Beta's looking at, in this case, doing something that's usable by others. And it doesn't end with just those eVTOL passenger aircraft or cargo. Trainer aircraft, such as the flight schools are already starting to use, are going electric. They're cheaper, they're easier to maintain, they're a lot safer to maintain and to operate, and so they can use these chargers. Ground vehicles can indeed use these chargers. They're fast DC chargers, so if the county at some point starts moving into having some electrical vehicles in the fleet, they would be suitable for that. So the price tag on something like this, around $500,000 to $700,000. We expect probably in the lower end here, because the variability there is with how much work needs to be done up front by the electrical utility, and that power is already pulled into the St. Mary's County Airport, so that doesn't need to happen, just needs to be extended to the actual site wherever that's chosen. And so with that, will kind of let it go, and if there's any questions, I'll take a shot.
So, you want me to?
Look at it.
So first, I think it's important for the audience and everyone to understand, because like I said, I did watch the commissioner meeting, that LBI money or legislative bond initiative money, it's not free money. It's borrowed money. legislative bond initiatives start off with the phrase, in order to secure a new state debt. So it absolutely is just borrowed money. And I have concerns over really all LBIs, to tell you the truth. One reason why Maryland has a AAA bond rating is because our property tax revenue exceeds our debt service payment. And we had some talk earlier about the debt service payment of the county. Well, in Maryland, property tax revenues used to bring in more money than our debt service payment. With the last 2 years of skyrocketing spending, this budget that Maryland's facing this year will be $500 million, $500 million upside down on that ratio. And one of the credit agencies, Moody's, has already said negative outlook and citing debt. So Maryland better get the frivolous spending under control, because if you don't, you're probably looking at a property tax increase or at least a credit downgrade, which would be harmful. So with that being said, and that is a backdrop of LBIs, this technology, Mr. Slaughter, doesn't exist yet, right? This is something that's being developed, correct?
Actually, they're in flight test. They're flying today. They've been flying for a while. And as I said, they're about less than 2 years away from actual full passenger carrying certification. So they've actually been in development for a decade, and they're really close.
So what would you be using it for? To transport people where?
So, some of those use cases that I mentioned there, back and forth, airports are a real obvious one. Here at Pax River, there are probably thousands of trips between Pax River and the airports up in the DC area every month, I would guess. Certainly hundreds, possibly thousands. And so each of those trips, again, is, about 150, 160 miles round trip, in a car, hours of wasted time and productivity by the people that are in those cars, along with the misery of DC traffic. And so it helps there. Back and forth for medical appointments. I think of folks that are going up for specialty treatments, cancer, or other things to DC, Baltimore, and other hospitals, the opportunity to land right on top of that hospital, not have to fly or drive up through all that kind of traffic and stuff. That's an opportunity there. There will be others. It's a new technology, and it is coming. There are literally billions of dollars of investment behind this. All the major airlines, FedEx, UPS, are all investing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in these. So the stuff's coming. It's a question of, are we going to be ready for it?
So as a person that, unfortunately, makes a lot of trips to Washington Hospital recently, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that would be something to look forward to. But to me, this technology is just like, the whole description of it seems like it would be better suited for some type of venture capital firm or other entities that invest in, like venture capital, that the state already has set up, like Marbitco, that can judge these projects individually, put seed money in. Now I can't help but notice, but you work for UAS.
UAS.
Yep. USM, University System of Maryland, they get like about $400 million of capital projects per year, just about every budget. So wouldn't that be a more proper place to put an initiative like this?
I can't really speak to that. I don't really know. I will say that, Beta is interested in a public-private partnership in this.
What company was that again?
That's Beta Technologies. That's one of the three manufacturers of the aircraft and the manufacturer of the charging technology. So they would be contributing, project management, engineering support, and possibly cash to be determined.
Okay. No, I'll take it under advisement.
Anybody goes out to the airport knows that we have one of the best things going. And as you and I discussed today, my committee will be coming down here in November, and we're going to go tour the UAS facility. It's funny with Beta being the name, since Beta is usually your test pilot to go along the way for any type of testing that we generally would do. And the 500K number is high. It's unusual for the commissioners to come to the delegation with an LBI. Quite frankly, I've never heard of it before, and I sat over there for 12 years, and I watched for a number of years. I'd never seen an LBI from the commissioners before. So that's one thing. But I think, like Delegate Morgan said, the university, there's some people at University of Maryland we might be able to talk to also to get some support also for this project, because it is a cool one. What would be a payload of a vehicle, an air vehicle for something like this?
Again, so probably in the 1,200-pound range. They're each a little different, but they're aiming for a single pilot, possibly 2 pilots and 4 passengers. So
Okay. The other concern I have, and this goes back to, and I don't know where the law sits, and Mr. Mariano may remember years ago, there was a gentleman named Cass Taylor. And Cass was the president he was the speaker.
Speaker of the House.
And at that time, he instituted 3 regional airports. There was one in Western Maryland, there was one here, and there's one on the Eastern Shore. However, one of the stipulations in that for flight was that you could only service from these regional airports BWI. And the confusion became very quick is that when we were thinking of instituting these regional flights, and as you know from your experience the contractors going back and forth all the time, and you do not get to make your plane reservations, the system does it for you. However, you had to go to BWI to fly out. And if the system says it's cheaper to fly out of Dulles or cheaper to fly out of Washington National, the airplane wouldn't be able to go there because of the constraint. Now, I don't know if that rule still exists today under the auspices of what the airport was set up under, but it'd be something I would want to be able to also research along with this, because the technology is vast. And just as you know, your neighbor across the runway platform had their open house the other day, the technology and where we're going with UAVs and things like that is incredible. And if we could be on the ground floor of something like this out there, just as you had the UAV a number of years ago deliver a heart and organ from somewhere to somewhere, I remember that was a big thing we did. I think it'd be really good, but how we get around the LBI becomes another story to itself. So I think we all can do a little bit more homework on this one along the way and see it, particularly at the University of Maryland, as Mr. Delegate Morgan said, a $400 million capital budget. This would be almost decimals.
Rounding error.
Rounding error.
Drop in the bucket.
But so thank you. I think it's a great idea.
So I'd just like to jump in for just a second. When we talk about LBIs, right? Nothing about your project. Just talking about, how we go about getting these, right? Up until 2 years ago, right? This is the wording that was required. Applicants generally are required to provide a matching fund for their project. A matching fund may be greater, equal to, or less than the state contribution, though at least an equal match is typically preferred. And they go on much more detail about a hard match, a soft match, the whole thing. But prior to us dealing with COVID, when we got the COVID money in 21 budget, right? We always had to have, when we did an LBI, a 50% match. So just for everybody to understand, when we're looking at the budget and we look about LBIs, right? The budget committees, they put out a notice to the legislators and they say, this is how much for your district that you can put in for LBIs, right? And it's been going down, last year it was pretty minimal. And they did not require the 50% match. But just to let you know that, moving forward this year with the way the budget looks, right, I would think that preference-wise that they are going to request the match.
And that may be good for your public-private partnership position if Beta would be willing to take that into consideration.
And I've got to say, too, from sitting on the budget, when we are making decisions about this, it really does look, we like to see the fact that the locals have skin in the game, right? If they're asking for money, right? We like to see the fact that they've willing to put up the investment, at least matching what the state's doing. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
In reading your packet here, the last paragraph, we were looking for, Beta is working on a project in Virginia, and it's being phased in now, or perhaps in the middle of it, you didn't have any details readily at hand. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so they're participating. The state of Virginia is basically funneling $200,000 to each of their smaller airports to set them up with this kind of capability for the future. So pulling three-phase power in, making sure they all have broadband connectivity and so forth. So yeah, Beta is participating in some of those projects.
And how are they on schedule, on budget as far as, and what is their upside looking there for, as far as return back to the municipalities and the governments and the counties there? Sorry.
I don't have any insight into their, on time, on budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, then the next one up, a request we classified as a legislative bond initiative. This one came in late, and trying to figure out exactly what to do with it or what the request was. Maybe an LBI fits, maybe it's just a request for support of some nature, but LBI was what it seemed like at the time. But it comes to us by Robert Hahn in his capacity as the CEO and founder of End Hunger in Southern Maryland, Inc., 501c3 that supports 42 food pantries across the Southern Maryland region. And again, the basics of the proposal is that, as I understand it, End Hunger in Southern Maryland is looking to acquire up to 3 refrigerated vans that they would be able to kit out, wrap, and then deliver to local food pantries that the food pantries could then use to build their capacity to get refrigerated foodstuffs and service the citizens in need that those food pantries reach out to. As far as specifics, I'm like I with the last request of this nature. I'm going to ask Mr. Hahn to come up and talk about the details of the proposal from there, as he knows them far better than I and can respond to your questions far better than I. But this is Mr. Hahn, and with him is Father Michael, who can sit on my right.
Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to even just come and present this. Fortunately, for this proposal, you don't need to know about math or engineering or technology. You just have to know about hunger, and specifically hunger for the elderly, for the working poor, for disabled veterans right here in Southern Maryland. And essentially what we're looking to do is purchase 3 refrigerated vans, not box trucks, but these would be conversion vans that food pantries would use to take local produce, fresh produce, meats, fruits, and things like that, and be able to distribute them to the even smaller food pantries. You may or may not know, most what we call food pantries that are in Southern Maryland are actually more like food closets. Access to fresh foods and access to healthy proteins are just key. And it's the hardest thing for these food pantries to provide because they don't have refrigeration, they don't have the space for it. What they do have is they know the people, they know the need, they know their clients or their customers, as they call them, and they know how to get the food to them or have them come to it. And it really is an investment. This is actually not an expense, because I'll tell you where you save money. You literally will save money on this. You will find a reduce in social services. People won't be coming to the social services for different handouts. Healthy food keeps people out of the hospitals. It lowers diabetes. It lowers heart problems, blood pressure, all other kinds of health problems that come from bad diets, which come from cheap foods, which are mostly starches and sugar foods. And it also it cultivates the culture of philanthropy among your own citizens. I think it was Mr. Morgan who talked about having skin in the game. I think it was in the last, was it you, sir? It was one of you up there mentioned you like to see them have skin in the game. These are folks who already have skin in the game. They have skin, muscle, their heart, and their very fiber and being. We're talking about organizations that are volunteer-driven, volunteer-run. They're supported by your churches, by your local people. So this is really local people helping local people. Every dollar stays right in the county where the van goes to. These vehicles aren't inexpensive. They're about $75,000 each. They're a good technology. They run on gasoline. They're not electric. And I guess the last thing I would say is today's news with the port strike, with the dockers strike, what that's going to do to people who deal with food insecurity. If that strike goes on and food prices go up, and what you really have access to is only frozen vegetables because fresh food is not coming in, it's going to be harder. And so just know that inflation and all these things, they hit the working poor and they hit the elderly and they hit our disabled veterans in disproportionate magnitude. So, yeah, we respectfully request $250,000 to purchase, outfit, wrap them so that they would actually give people on the road to know where they could call to get food if they needed to, and one for each county, one for Calvert, one for Charles, and one for St. Mary's. And the best thing about this request is we won't be back.
So, Mr. Hahn, when the commissioners approved this, we didn't really know a lot of the details about this proposal. We thought, hey, this is a interesting idea. We'll let the delegation decide what they want to do with it. But can you let us know how many food pantries do you service in St. Mary's County?
In St. Mary's, I think it's about 25 in St. Mary's. That's officially, and Father Mike might know better. He's really the boots on the ground. But a lot of these food pantries are unregistered. They're unknown because, like, one church will get a shipment of food and then they'll take it to smaller food pantries that we might not even know exist. Michael, do you?
Sure. We distribute it in 3 counties, but it's really teamwork. What you're touching on right now is it's not the number of the pantries. It's our effort is to be able to use vehicles and to meet at a particular church that has a large parking lot. It's got to have that. And to get the surrounding smaller, the rural, small congregations that might have 40 people, but hunger is there. That hunger is on those back roads. It's the elderly, it's disabled, it's the vets, it's a lot of good people who've hit the hard times. And so what you would appropriate is but a fraction of the value because the foods are donated. Okay, I checked our records in the last 7 years. We've put out somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. Didn't cost the county governments 1 penny. And the only grant money I ever asked for and got, because I have no idea how you write a grant. I'm more of a beggar than a fundraiser. And it totaled, one was $2,000, the next year $2,000 and $3,000. I believe that's $7,000 out of 8 years in the business. Yeah. I run on generosity. You know what? We're one race. We're a human race. Every person has a potential to go hungry, okay? So I don't care whether you're a Methodist, a Mormon, a Catholic. That's irrelevant. We're all human beings, and we do have an obligation, and we have the abilities. And you guys have the power to be able to support what's commonsensical to me. And if a man is hungry, we feed him. That's what we do, because that man could be you or me. And so we do have a big network. It's over 125 churches, mostly churches, and some nonprofits that are not, they're not religious affiliated. And like he's saying, most of these folks they're volunteers. There's no payroll, there's no Social Security withholding. The offices, if they have them, they're a box in a little simple building somewhere. All these expenses are kept low. You guys have an opportunity to really reach out by the provision of these vans because it's not available right now. If you're going to take food out to somebody in a vehicle, it's probably somebody's own van or their pickup or a car. But these things put together right, not just the van, but the idea that we can keep things fresh, keep them warm. You can't do that right now. And some of these roads we go down, they're dirt roads. And you go down the dirt roads, there's some old Rambler house probably built, I'm guessing, 1970s, 1980s. You got the old dishwasher, you got the washer dryer, the 3 old cars, and they are human beings too. And I know we can do a lot more, but we need your support. This is a gift. If you put out $250, you're going to get $1 million of food distributed around the area. I mean, you want some, what is it, something for a buck for a bang for a buck?
Oh,
All right.
okay.
I'm a professional beggar. I can turn a nickel
So,
into a buck. We can do this. We need your support.
So let me ask this question. You talk about 3 vans in southern Maryland. Are these vans just for St. Mary's or this for the southern Maryland region?
right now, what we're suggesting is 1 per county.
So it's $250,000 for 1 van?
No, for 3, all 3.
You're asking, the request is for $250,000.
Yes.
If you need, I'm not going to raise my hand and say I'm going to buy a van for Calvert Charles. So you need 1 van for St. Mary's. So your $250,000 request just got cut by a third.
Well, what we're hoping is that we can get the whole Southern Maryland delegation and bring in Charles and bring in Calvert as well. I just spoke with Senator Jackson's, with Don Rao. And he likes the idea. We talked on the phone about it. So, we're looking to launch it from here, but I'm willing to, and I think Senator Bailey and we've met before. He knows I'll work it. I'll speak to Senator Jackson. I'll speak to Senator Ellis and gin up support through the 3 counties so that it's one request that is good for all of Southern Maryland.
Well, I guess the other question I would ask is that through the Tri-County Council, which does recognize all 3 counties under one sort of parent, umbrella organization as a subsidiary organization called SMATIC, Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Corporation. And it would seem logical to me, after serving on the Tri-County Council for years, that SMATIC might be a better undertaker of this project, recognizing that they are doing a whole bunch of stuff with farm to table and a lot of other stuff relative to agriculture, ties to the Department of Agriculture. And since, as Senator Bailey said, the matching becomes a critical element to this, that SMATIC might be another alternative for us to look at as being an alternative to asking the county, but then SMATIC could go back through Marbidco or someplace and possibly at least make the request. Does that make sense?
We spoke about this last week at the Tri-County Executive Meeting, and we did, SMATIC has come into a little bit of extra money due to a canceled project, and that might be an easier lift for SMATIC to fund a good portion of this as opposed to coming through an LBI.
So just so we can get this LBI thing just straight, right? If we talk about the guidelines and the eligibility when it comes to the criteria for an LBI, right? If I go through those guidelines, a project must be capital in nature. A capital project deals with land and/or structures. Capital projects do not include items such as employee salary, benefits, expandable equipment. The example they use is any type of automobiles or operating expenses, right? So that is a definite discouragement in that. A project must have a useful life of 15 years. Capital projects, including LBIs, must have a useful life greater than or equal to the life of the bonds sold to finance the project, which are limited by the state constitution to 15 years.
Do they make exceptions for electric lawnmowers?
So items,
Robotic lawnmower. Well, what about a dam at in Brenton Bay? I mean, just seems like we've seen these things come out for projects that didn't benefit the whole county. I mean, it benefited.
no, I'm not saying this is not an important project. What I'm saying is, right church, wrong pew. Right? There is a way that we can work with this, right? But an LBI is not the correct venue
The LBI sort of restricts it to.
to get the money for this.
Okay, well,
What do you suggest, Senator?
yeah, that's the key, is you're here to get started.
Right. I mean,
Which pew should I be sitting in?
I strongly suggest the fact of SMATIC with a grant, right, through the Tri-County Council that benefits all 3 counties, and you get everybody's buy-in. And I think that that's something that all 3 counties would embrace.
Have you talked to Tri-County Council at all?
No, well, not on this. I mean, I've worked with Tri-County for 15 years. I mean, they're usually a 50,000 feet kind of operation. They deal with the bigger food pantries, the bigger warehouses, and all that. This is a little more retail than they tend to get. So it didn't occur to me to go to them on this. But if I knew I was coming in with the Southern delegation's full-throated support and advocacy, that would certainly help if I had to go that way.
Mr. Hahn, I can say that Shelby, who is the head of the SMATIC portion of Tri-County Council, is very interested in this project. 'Cause I did bring this up last week with the executive committee.
Groundwork's been done.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. I really do.
The work
And,
started. The work started on it. Yeah.
And the number was what, 42 pantries, 42 separate
It's
pantries?
actually
Justin?
73 pantries
73?
between the 3 counties, yeah.
Well, Mr. Hahn, if you don't get the right group to talk to, at least you're getting more information and maybe to get successful. Because at the end of the day, you want to end hunger in Southern
That's
Maryland.
really, yeah,
I mean-
you know, that's really, I don't want to get caught in the muck and the mire of, you know, separating the pots from the pans, so to speak. We want to get to feeding people who are hungry right now or people who are going to be hungry and don't know it a month from now. So let me just ask a question, and then I will be respectful of your time and the fact that you guys are out here late. I know for a fact that exceptions have been made to the restrictions on LVI. Everybody sits here knowing it. So if Tri-County comes in for a piece of this package, can I come back? I'm not asking you to commit, other than to commit to allowing me to come back and say, look, here's how far we're on the 50, 60-yard line. Can you help us get into the end zone?
Well,
With
the
all
county,
3 counties, not just St. Mary's.
I would say in St. Mary's County, we have nonprofits that we do have a process for. And we're going to ask you to go ahead and go through the nonprofit process.
Okay.
To see if you can get, money from St. Mary's County government. I've often said that the elderly and the poor and the working poor are the ones that are impacted worse by this inflation that's happened with these skyrocketing food prices. So what you're doing, sir, is wonderful, because we've heard that if you don't bring proteins to people, they end up with the starches and the sugars,
Yeah.
and they end up with the wrong kind of diet.
And then they're in the emergency room.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear about this and this LBI process, right? We can't give you that guarantee because
I understand that.
we don't know how much money there's going to be, right? I've got to tell you, when we're all sitting there, the Southern Maryland delegation, we can get a lot done, and we've done a lot for a lot of people. But for us to say that we can just do this for you, that's why we're saying that there is money available through grants, through some access to try to give you opportunities, right, to make the ask correctly.
You know, I
right?
hear that.
Because if you ask a drum, well, can I come back and try to get this LBI? It's not going to happen.
No,
Right? It's just not, so that's what I'm trying to.
Senator Bailey, one thing I've always appreciated is your candor and your directness, and I appreciate it tonight. And I actually do understand that. What I meant was to come back and say, can we find a way? That's what I meant. So if we get some funding from SMATIC and Tri-County and all that, and we're getting close, I want to be able to come back and request it. Maybe not through an LBI, but through whatever means it is. And if this is not the format and the venue, then to just be guided through one of the commissioners here to say, look, let's navigate the minefield. That's all I really want to do. I just want to feed hungry people. And let me just say, St. Mary's has always had a generous heart towards the needy. So I want, that is your reputation. And
And we want to help you do that.
I know
think
you do.
Senator Jackson made his pitch to you about it and how supportive he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have two people sitting on the budget that are going to try to help you when we can. But I'm just telling you that SMATIC is a great tool to make your sales pitch.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
I'd say go
appreciate
there
it.
first with Tri-County Council, SMATIC, and then all 3 counties, we have funds that we do give to nonprofits. We have an application process. As a matter of fact, it's just getting ready to start, in January, the applications or process?
I think it's supposed to be
December.
revised, so we're not quite sure what
Not
that
quite
process.
yet.
Usually the application
We're
process
still working
starts
that, right? It's gonna be,
mid-December.
we're working on that, but you can get all 3 counties to come under our nonprofit funding.
Okay.
And we can help you out some too on that, if you can't get enough through the Tri-County and SMATIC, okay?
Very good. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all the service that you provide and giving up Tuesday nights the way you do to
We appreciate
serve
what you're doing. I was at St. Mary's carrying this today, and it's remarkable what she's doing down there to feed
Yeah.
the people in our county.
We have some remarkable people in Southern Maryland. Still a jewel.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Proposal 10, a more traditional request for legislation. This comes from the Alcohol Beverage Board. They are asking to amend Section 28-2802 of the Alcoholic Beverages and Cannabis article to increase the maximum civil fine the ABB can impose from the current maximum of $1,000 to a new maximum of $2,500. This does, as I mentioned, have the support of the Alcoholic Beverage Board as a board. It is not brought to you just by one member of it. They did take a vote and acted corporately to make this their request. The commissioners did support this in turn. If there are questions, I know Tammy Hildebrand, the head staff over there, and Dave Willenborg, the chair of the Alcohol Beverage Board, are on hand to answer any questions, but the actual nuts and bolts of it, fairly straightforward in that it is just a increase in the maximum civil fine that can be imposed.
Question.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You want to come up, Tammy? It's an easy question.
So far.
So,
Hey, good evening. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
So, increasing the fine from $1,000 to $2,500. What is the rationale behind that? And is the goal to have maybe another step here to create like a step system and some guidelines if a person violates the alcohol license? Because we've had in the past where, you know, I realize that you can only have a maximum fine of $1,000, and then the business is shut down for a period of time, and that is a big step up from $1,000 to being shut down.
Right. And that's what,
And is that the goal, to have some type
Yes.
of, you know, a little bit stiffer penalty, but more
and
flexibility to leave the business open?
the board is not asking that they would automatically go to the 2,500. They don't even, right now, for the most part, like for first-time offense, don't even use the full 1,000. But the 1,000 max, like you said, when you have a repeat offender, okay, now we're going from $1,000 to suspension. That's the next
So I
step.
think I already know the answer to this question, but if you do have a repeat offender, what's the statute of limitations on that y'all enforce?
We have a 3-year probation.
Okay,
period,
so if
so
the
it's
person
within-
violates it once, that starts the clock. And if it's 3 years later, then they
Right.
receive the same, like a same
Exactly,
fine. Okay.
exactly.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for
You're welcome.
answering that.
Was there anything else before I?
So I was just asking, when we talk about the penalty and matrix that you have, so if a 21-year-old employee commits a violation, what is the fine for the first offense?
For the business,
Yes.
first offense can be up to $1,000 fine. Okay, and the board normally will, depending on the facts of the case, will usually temper that down. They'll give the $1,000 fine, but they'll hold some in abeyance. Okay, and as long as they don't violate again in 3 years, that part of the fine goes away, as long as they mind their manners. As far as the clerks go, they have their own fine up to $500, and the board's not looking to increase that.
Okay. I'm just, from being in a couple of the youth organizations, I see how important, we have all these big box stores, and they never sponsor or help or assist any of these baseball teams, any of, the softball teams. They just aren't a big help to our community, where these small mom and pop stores are a big help, right? And I see that some of them have 6 or 7 families that are dependent upon that income. And I think raising the fine is, I don't have any objection with that. But making it easier to close their business and stop the income for those families, right, is something that definitely causes me some concern.
And that is, and our chair will attest to that, that is the goal of the board, is to raise the fine to be high enough to be a deterrent you know, to make people look at IDs and make sure that.
Create another step.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Next proposal is from the Sheriff's Office, who's represented here tonight by Mary Ann Thompson, Warden of our Detention Center. The request is text amendments to Section 11-720 of the Correctional Services article to specify the Sheriff's Office's authority to establish day reporting, inpatient supervision, and pre-trial release supervision programs in a pre-release program, things they currently do already, and that the language they want to bring up to date to better reflect that and to spell that out with explicit language. The other text amendments they propose are language consistent with those programs and to bring up some of the dated language in the code here to reflect current practices. If we have any questions, Warden Thompson, of course, here, ready, able, and willing to answer them.
I'm assuming, Mary Ann, that to pay for this is already in your budget, and you're not going to be coming back to the commissioner saying, well, I need 3 more people to administer this program if it gets approved.
Good evening. No, sir. These are current programs that we are currently doing within the detention center. And for day reporting, which is home detention, we have grant monies to do that. So at this juncture, there's no additional monies needed. It just was updating the annotated code.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, then no more questions on the sheriff's proposal. Moving to the Metropolitan Commission's proposal. Again, a proposal from the commission entire, who have voted as a corporate entity to make these requests. This is a proposal of the commission, not an individual member, as they have done in past years, packaging several text amendments to streamline, bring up to date, and just spell out with greater specificity old language in Chapter 113 of our public local laws. They have got 3 specific text amendments packaged together this year. The first, and Mr. Erickson, I'm just going to give standing invitation to rush up here the moment I misspeak or misstate or say something inartful, but I'm going to do my best. First one is just new language that would spell out the Metropolitan Commission's ability to turn off for homes that are, when I say in a bad way, imagine a tornado has hit them, lightning strike, fire, something has rendered them completely uninhabitable, bordering on falling down. Metcom does not presently have explicit authority to turn off the water running to that building to at least keep your water bill from running up while you are trying to salvage what is left of that building. My understanding is that Metropolitan Commission is doing it anyways right now, and that this language would just explicitly allow them, give them that authority for those distressed properties to turn off water service and try and keep the charges from getting higher for those buildings that are outright uninhabitable at that point. That is the first text amendment. Turning the page, the second text amendment on the top paragraph is just language specifying or pointing out the Metropolitan Commission offers both public sewer and water, and is adding in references to the water element of the services they provide. And then in the second paragraph after that, if we turn down to paragraph 2, subsection G, we see the omitted, struck out language, just specifying that if a contractor or somebody incurs actual costs to the Metropolitan Commission, if they strike a line and damage it, and Metropolitan Commission has to begin an administrative action to enforce a claim against them, that they can get back more than $1,000 in actual costs, which is the current limit in that old section of the code. So those are the 3 text amendments that Metcom is offering this year. If there are no questions, and we move on to requests from the community at large. The first one from the St. Mary's County Licensed Beverage Association. Third and last of the bills you will hear tonight that touch about on alcohol. I do see that Mr. Dent and maybe 1 or 2 other members of the Licensed Beverage Association here tonight for questions. But it's the Licensed Beverage Association, not the Alcohol Beverage Board yet. My understanding is that the Licensed Beverage Board also comes for the ABB on the 10th to tease out what they think of this proposal. But the Licensed Beverage Association wants to increase the existing or decrease, I can't figure out quantity. I told you what I am at math. Existing law says that we can have 1 Class A liquor store license in each election district for every 1,350 people who live in that election district. So increasing, decreasing, whatever is the right word for the quota to use that they want to do. In the 8th district and the 8th election district only, Licensed Beverage Board Association has the idea that they want to increase that limit from 1 license per 1,350 individuals to 1 license per every 4,000 individuals living in that district. And the rationale the Licensed Beverage Board Association provided in their request is that they think that will help prevent further saturation and overproliferation of liquor stores in that particular part of the county, since it is the most populated election district in the county by far. Any questions? Mr. Dent is here.
We do have a lot of liquor stores in the 8th district,
You can't swing a dead cat with
maybe about every 300 yards. I get it.
Then moving on to the request number 14, a request from John Walters, a member of the St. Mary's County Library Board of Trustees, but an individual request from Mr. Walters, not from the board entire at this point. Mr. Walters suggests amending the maximum term length of a member of the Library Systems Board of Trustees from 5 years to 3 years.
Let me ask this question. Since we've played this kabuki dance for years with the library board, I appreciate Mr. Walters coming forward. I know the battles that have taken place literally over membership and years of service. Is the library board on board with this?
So that is why this has been deferred, because this is the 4th of the 4 bills that were deferred by the county commissioners for the purpose of soliciting input from the library board of trustees. They are aware of the proposal. I know Mr. Blackwell knows it. Don't have an official opinion from them yet. My understanding is that the board meets on the 18th, and I will expect I'll have an answer from them in very short order.
We'll be waiting. Thank you.
And we've also had reservations about self-appointing boards.
I am we got that part, Commissioner Hewitt. Only too much.
Self-appointed boards, yeah, we got those.
The last one, Commissioner's Delegate, bit of a relief. We're ending on something of a high note. Keith Harless sent in a proposal to amend St. Mary's County's 6510 senior tax credit, changing some of the eligibility requirements for it. And when we went up and did the research on that one,
You
found
already
that
have the
this is a statewide optional tax credit. It was passed in 2016. In 2016, the General Assembly did say you must live in that house for more than 40 years, among some other more restrictive things. And over the years, the state has seen reason and given a little bit more freedom and flexibility to localities. Right now, when we looked into it, it's our opinion that we do have current authority under existing state law to make the changes in eligibility requirements to this particular senior tax credit that Mr. Harless is asking for, if the commissioners would so choose. Among other things, Mr. Harless asked to take that 40-year residency requirement to a more reasonable 20-year requirement, and to change the maximum value of the house from $400,000 to, considering inflation and the raise in home prices, $475,000, and a few other things as well, both of which we have authority to do under existing state law. Those changes came in, I think, 2017 and a few years after that at the state level. So we do
The
not.
ball's in your court again.
So we do not need action from the state at this
Thank you.
time to move along that route.
We let y'all talk this time, all right?
You're so nice.
Commissioners, delegates, that is it. That is all 15. Again, pending a little bit of a report back on the 4 that we deferred action on at that time. Any questions in general, happy to field them, but I'm sure we are just ready to get on with public comment at this point and hear what the people have to say.
Thank you, John.
We
Very good-
appreciate it.
very good
Thank you.
Great
presentation.
job, John.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Weiskopf, would you please provide the guidelines for public input this evening?
Certainly, sir. Sign-in sheets for each legislative item were provided in the lobby. If you have not signed in and wish to speak tonight, we ask that you sign in now. All speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to address the commissioners and delegation. At the end of the 3 minutes, our communications director, Jenna Guzman, will let you know your time has expired. We ask that you respect the 3-minute time limit in order to give all those who wish to participate an opportunity to be heard. When you come to the microphone stand, please approach by coming down the center aisle, and remember this meeting is being televised, so you need to speak clearly and directly into the microphone for recording purposes. We will now open the meeting for public comments. First speaker I have is for Proposal 13. I do not see Mr. Dent and his associate. I do not see anymore.
They left.
Yep. Okay.
The bill hearing went that well.
Yeah.
They were in favor of it, I
They
believe.
like what we heard.
And Proposal 15, Mr. Keith Harless had asked to address. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Keith Harless, 23225 Murfield Lane, Lexington Park, Maryland. On the 6510 senior tax credit, as explained earlier, don't need the state to make any changes to it. So I'll talk to the county commissioners to them to make changes, make it more reasonable. The 40-year limit, right now, you have to live in a house 40 years. I mean, that means you have to be 25 when you buy it, or younger. And I mean, that's not very realistic. Most people would be buying a starter home at that point. Oftentimes, you move into a larger home as your family grows. And then oftentimes, you go back to a smaller home and downsize. And so if you make any changes within those 40 years, clock starts over, you're not eligible. So, and plus with the cost of housing I've seen in the last few years has risen quite a bit in the last year. That 400,000, I mean, if you look around, what I would consider starter homes go beyond that limit now. So I would ask you to increase that limit and reduce the length of residency limit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. That is all who have signed up to speak tonight. Is there anyone in the audience who did not sign up who wishes to speak? Okay. We will now close the meeting for public comment. Back to you, Commissioner President Guy.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. This brings us to the close of our meeting this evening. I'd like to thank the delegation for their time tonight, participation, and Commissioner Chair Morgan, would you like to say a few words before we close?
I want to thank everyone for their inputs this evening. Once Delegate Crosby gets back, we'll probably convene, but it probably won't be anytime soon, probably more towards the start of session, so we have a better handle on what is happening in Annapolis, particularly financially with the budget, as Delegate Morgan said, and we appreciate your time and effort in this evening.
Okay. Senator Bill, you have anything more you want to add? Or
Thank you, and thanks everybody for attending this evening.
Delegate Matt, do you have anything?
Well, thank you. No, thank you for attending, and I appreciate, the dialogue back and forth.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion that the commissioners and the staff support during this meeting. I'd like to thank the citizens of St. Mary's County for your attendance and participation. The next business meeting of the Commissioners of St. Mary's County will be at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. We hope you will join us then or watch the meeting on local channel 95 or our YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes,
Before
sir.
you adjourn,
Go ahead.
sorry to report the Orioles lost the first game 1-0.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to watch it.
I was recording it.
Good man. Too bad. Too bad.
1-0. Wow.
Oh, man.
What a terrible loss.
Pitcher's duel.
Okay, we'll see everybody. Like I said, our next meeting is going to be at 9 a.m. on the 8th of October. Meeting adjourned.